because
I don't explain it
I
all.
probably didn't read it.
No, you're fine tonight.
Okay.
Because tonight, we're not using the book.
Oh, very good. Well, then I'll just put that baby right aside.
There we go.
I don't know how long this will go tonight. Because I got these ideas from God that I wrote them all down. And then I thought, is that enough? And why did I even ask that? Of course it's going to be. God's going to make it happen. But if we get done early, okay. There's a microphone in the center of the table so that Facebook can hear us if we're talking, hopefully. So I just need someone on Facebook to say if you can hear me and can you hear anybody else talking. And of course, nobody's going to talk now because I said that. But you should be able to even hear the clock ticking.
We're gonna nod our heads.
Wow.
Yeah. I tested it out earlier when I got here, and I could hear the clock ticking.
Wow.
So if we're quiet enough, they might be able to hear the clock on Facebook.
Yep.
We'll never be that quiet.
Okay, so yeah, tonight we're not using the book, but for next week, I would start at like page 100 and read, no, not past 130, because we won't go past 130, but, you know, just somewhere in there. That's what we're going to cover next week. But tonight, now this guy may cover this in the book. I think it actually does, but I think he just kind of briefly mentions a few things. But, and everybody, Dana Gully says she can hear everybody.
Good.
Yeah, so.
Hi, Dana.
He
Hey,
may
Dana.
cover this, but this is just something that God has been giving me the last couple days, and I've been putting it together, and I just want to see how it goes. And if you're on Facebook, or you guys can see, there's questions back here, and I put them on Facebook, and it's, can God do it? Does God do it? And will God do it? So let's start with, can God do it? That should be an automatic yes. There is nothing that God can't do. Yes, God can do it. Well, what are we talking about? Well, that's what we're going to get into tonight. Does God, okay, let's start with, does God talk to you? Do you hear God's voice? So answer that for yourself. Yes, no, sometimes, maybe. But then ask yourself, will God talk to you? If you say that he doesn't, do you think he will? And let's go beyond that. Does God call people or call you? Have you heard God call you to do something specific? Maybe it's visit someone, maybe it's give someone a phone call, send a message, go to a different church. Hopefully not. No, and that's fine if he does. So he's called
I know.
people to other churches before. So ask yourself that question, and then come up with your own question. What would God ask me to do, and does he do it? And then ask yourself, will he do it? So like it could be a really big thing, and do you think God would do it? So let's say that I say I'm going to take a Sunday off and I need someone to just give a testimony. Does God ask people to give testimonies? Yeah. Yeah. Will he ask you? Or you? And the question to ask after that is, will you step up and do it if God asks you to do it?
You're really putting us on the spot.
I know, you don't have to answer. These are just thoughts, these things to get you thinking. Okay? So, and I'm not asking anybody to step up and do that, at least not right now. But just ask yourself that. Because how you answer will depend on a couple of things. How do you see God? Who is God to you? And then how do you see yourself with God? And how you answer will also depend on how you've been taught in church or by your family or what you've read or whatever in your life. So, before we go on to those questions though, does God ask people to do things? Does anybody think no?
Why? I think
No,
he does.
I did too.
Because, I mean, I know that just talking with you, that, you have, said that he's, well, like tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. But what about with you? Does he ask you to do things?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, you and I have talked about this.
I know.
and-
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I know, it's okay. I mean, you and I have had conversations about this, and I'm like, but you say he does.
know he
I mean,
does.
you say that he does to me, and, like, yeah.
Well, I've seen, here's the thing with you, Debbie. I've seen the results of what God has asked you to do, and you've stepped up and done it, but you didn't realize it was God asking you to do it.
Yeah, maybe I just thought it was you.
Yeah, I can't take credit for it. But see, that's the thing that we need, I'm trying to get us to look for in our lives. What have I done that I could give credit to God? Have you done anything and you just think, well, that was just out of character for me, or I don't usually do that?
Last week when you read,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember what
I don't remember, no.
it was about? Well, when you read it, and I'm doing the Bible thing,
Okay,
okay, I knew where you were.
okay.
Like, that was a big thing for me.
That is a very big thing.
That's a big,
good thing.
I'm like, wow.
So I read from the
So
Bible.
then, you know what, then you said to me, quit, you said, quit giving yourself so much credit.
Right.
Give credit to God.
Right, right.
So on the way home, I said, God, I was trying to do that. I said,
Yeah.
God, let me know that I got, that I remembered that. And
Yes,
I really,
yes.
so I
Yes.
just want to tell you that.
That is a perfect example.
I did. I tried to give that to God instead of.
Good. And I hope that didn't come across the wrong way. I didn't mean it to
No,
be.
it wouldn't. No. It
Okay.
is fine if you did.
No, I didn't.
You're okay. It
takes a lot to offend us.
But that's a
But I
great
thought that was, and when you
Perfect
said,
example.
and then I thought, oh my gosh, I understood, and I read that part, and I remembered that part.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh no, I didn't do it.
No,
God
you did remember.
I know, but I wanted to give some
But
credit.
God helped you remember.
He did.
Yeah,
He
so
did.
it's not like a one-way thing. He does want us involved, but he does want the credit too.
Listen, Pastor Phil, you can't have it both ways. Come on. Come on. You want me to take credit or you want God to take credit? Come on.
I'm giving you both credit.
Listen, I'm confused enough, okay?
I'm giving you both credit. Okay, but that's a good example. So Debbie, for you, the example I'm thinking of is you did something, oh gosh, what was it? And I think you wrote a note, but I know you weren't the person writing, I don't think you are you the person writing all the notes?
No, but
Okay.
I got one, and that was really nice.
But you wrote a note, I think you wrote it for
I don't
me,
remember.
maybe
Big
one
quote.
time.
It's possible.
And I knew that God had told you to do that, but you didn't realize that God told you to do that. You probably just thought, oh, I'm just going to write a note. And, it was a really nice note. But God put that on your heart, is what I'm saying.
Well, then if that's the case, then I think he puts a lot of stuff on my heart.
Yes, he does. He
Huh?
absolutely.
Or
Yeah,
I was like, yeah.
You need to listen to Vernon.
yeah, I told you that.
Who talks to God and knows and talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of thoughts that I think, wonder where that came from.
Okay, yeah.
Like my whole mitten and glove thing. And
Yes,
that.
that's a perfect example. That you probably didn't come up with on your own.
Well, I thought I did.
Well, yes, but here's the thing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, just to take the credit. But when you give God the credit, it brings you closer to God.
Okay.
He's not just this person who's up in the sky somewhere watching and playing chess game. He is actually involved in our lives, is what I'm trying to say. And when we give him the credit for being involved in our lives, then it draws us closer to him. Because he wants the credit, he deserves the credit, he is greater than what we often give him credit for. And when we do acknowledge him like that, he will do more.
So random acts of kindness.
Yes. Matthew 25. Okay, I'm on Matthew 20 right now, but I'm going to read something from Matthew 25. If I can find it.
I mean, I try to practice random acts of kindness all the time.
But do you think that you come up with that on your own?
Well,
You know how to answer now.
well, I mean, I thought I did until just about a second ago.
Okay,
What
but
about Souls for Shoes?
Yeah, we did.
yes, there you
That
go.
was
That's a
one
good one
that
too.
you were
Shoes for
really
souls. yeah.
involved in.
Okay, so in Matthew
She
25,
thought it was her.
I know.
Jesus is telling a couple parables, and he says, and I don't know if it's Matthew 25 now. Boy, my pages are sticking together.
Why do they make a Bible with pages so thin?
I don't know. That is a good question. I really don't know the answer to that.
Makes it
okay,
lighter
here it is.
weight.
He says, I was sick and you visited. Wait, I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, wait, let me back up. For I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. And the righteous, oh my goodness, I can't read tonight. The righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we see a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So those random acts of kindness, any little thing you do, giving somebody shoes, putting gloves and scarves and mittens out, or whatever it is, you're doing it for Jesus. And he's
See, I called
putting
you
it-
for lunch last night for that.
Yes, there you go. He's putting it on your heart, and there's only one way you can know that he's doing it, because you're hearing God's voice.
I just try to be a good person.
And that's part of your identity, is that he is, whatever you want to do, desire to do, whatever you are good at, that's what God is telling you that you are. So you are a person who likes to give. There's a gift of giving. And it's not always just giving money. You give anything. You give your time. You give
Yourself.
abundance. What's that?
Yourself.
Yourself, yes. So you are hearing God more than you realize. You just need to give him credit, and then he'll start working with you so you know when it really is him and not just Debbie or just Julie or whomever. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so we know that God can do it. Does he do it? Well, I think we just proved that yes, he does talk to all of us and calls us all to do various different things. Now the question that we really need to answer is, will he? Now here's where the first night you came to me, you mind if I share that, what
No,
you said?
No, that's fine.
So Jolie comes to me after the first night, and she says, I know God can do these things. And I went, okay, that's the first step. And I'm just afraid that if I ask him, that he's going to make me do something. Is that how you said it?
Yeah. Or if he talks to me, then I'm gonna be scared and not
Yeah.
know, well, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
If he does talk to me, then I'm going to be scared. Yeah.
And not know
okay.
what to do, yeah.
Not know what to do. But, and I told you that we would help you overcome that,
Yes.
right? And hopefully you're starting to overcome that. I think you are, based on what you told me earlier. So, what God is looking for here is for us to understand who he is. So that's part of that. How do you see God? And how do you see yourself? So I'm going to go back to Matthew chapter 20 that I had bookmarked here. And there's a little passage in here about the disciples. He's talking about, well, it's Matthew 20 starts out with laborers in the vineyard. It's a parable about kind of about the end times, but also just about serving. And then he tells about his death a third time. And then the mother of the sons of Zebedee, that's James and John, came to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him, this I'm getting with Matthew chapter 20, verse 20, asked him something, and he said to her, what do you want? she said to him, "Say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "Do you not know what you're asking? Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" And that meant his death. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? Then they said to him, "We are able." They thought that they could do whatever he was going to do. They didn't know. He had just told them he was going to die. And they didn't pick up on that. "Oh yeah, we can do it. Yeah, sure. We believe we can do anything." And he says, they said to him, "We are able." And he said to them, "You will drink my cup. You will die a death at the hands of the unrighteous. But to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but is for those to whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus called to them and said, this is the part I wanted to really focus on. "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." We often focus on that, give his life to be a ransom for many. We know he died on the cross for us. But that part, he came to serve us. If we can get that in our minds and understand he came to serve us, he wants to serve us. Now, prior to tonight, did you ever think about God serving you? We often think we're supposed to serve God, right? He wants to serve us. And he showed us this. In John chapter 13, he pulls his disciples aside and he washes their feet. Now, he washed their feet not because, today we would think, why would somebody wash somebody else's feet? We wear shoes. They didn't have shoes. Their feet got dirty. It was a custom to wash someone's feet. Typically, a servant, whether it be an indentured servant or just a paid servant, would wash the people's feet when they came home because they've been dirty from either being barefoot or wearing sandals, and they didn't have paved roads or paved sidewalks. So it was a custom to do that. So when Jesus was washing their feet, he was saying, "I am here to serve you." He was trying to show us that after his death, the Holy Spirit would come, who is God. If you remember that Trinity shield we had a couple weeks ago, he would come and serve them. And by serving us, he's growing his kingdom, he's building us up, and he's drawing us closer to him. But too often we see God as this up in heaven, sitting on his throne, and just waiting for him to put his thumb down on us if we make a mistake.
Can you draw that Trinity to show Barb?
I can bring up a picture. Well, okay, here, yeah, I'll draw it because I don't want to mess up the
I might be able
Facebook
to
feed.
find it.
Oh, you got it?
Let's see, what was it on?
Because when I drew mine in my notes, you should see how bad it was. But I got the idea what it was.
That's the Bible.
Yeah, it would probably be better to see hers because I don't draw real well. But I'll try. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a good start? Oh my. Is that a good start?
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
There you go, yeah.
Okay.
That's where mine is.
So, now I gotta go back to where I was.
He talked about that in church a couple weeks ago.
I think when you think of God, Jesus coming to serve us, I think of that as the times that you're given strength
Sure.
to manage, go through whatever. I've always been very aware of what he gave me to get me through whatever little patch it was.
Absolutely.
And I think I probably never was as strong as I should have been. But people have said, I don't see how you do da-da-da-da-da. And I will say, it's not me.
Yeah.
it's God. I mean, it's so easy to do
Mm-hmm.
if it's what He wants you to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that's
I mean-
exactly what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
you can do it if it's what you think you need to be doing. I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
You know.
And I think with Verna and I, we both lost our husbands. How do you get through it? Just breathing.
Just breathing, is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I text her all the time. She's having a bad day. Just breathe. So what does she text me when I'm having a bad day?
Just breathe.
But
That's good.
but it's sometimes life is so tough. You can't take it an hour at a time or a day at a time. You have to take it a second at a time, and that's how you get through. Because I can live through 1 second. So if I live through this second, then I can live through the next second, and that's how.
That's good.
That's how we have to get through. I mean, there have been some pretty bad times for both of us, and
Mhm.
it just you have to take it a second at a time because sometimes the day's way too much.
But
That's good.
That's nice you have each other's support though.
Yes.
I mean, that helps.
Yeah. She is the most wonderful person about sending a card. Like, I will be having a bad day, and all of a sudden a card comes in the mail from Verna. I love you. And I'm like,
That's happened
how
to me
does
too.
she know?
Yeah.
How does she know that right now I'm crashing?
Because
She
because
doesn't.
I know.
God told her to.
But
Exactly.
she has done this, she has
You
done
got
this
it
for
down.
years. When Jim was ill, I would get cards, and I'm not nearly as good about it as she is, but I would get cards just thinking about you, or,
Well, see, this is part of her identity.
it is. I mean, she's
and part of
wonderful
her
about it.
calling. And you may not have the same kind of identity or calling as she does, but you have something. And God will speak to you through your identity. He speaks to us through who we are. So that's why it's so important to understand who we are, so that we know if I hear something that's just completely off the wall, then I know that's not God speaking. If I were to hear, hey, Phil, it's time to not be a pastor anymore, like, that's not God. There's no way that's God. Because that's not because who I am, part of who I am is being a pastor. So I know that God would only speak to me through that way.
And I feel, as far as doing the cards, sometimes, there's been times I've sent like 10, 12 cards out in a week. And I wonder, is anybody even care whether I send these cards?
Yes.
Well, that really came to me 2 or 3 weeks ago. Willow came to church.
Mhm.
And it was the first time she'd been back for a while, and she was kind of going and talking with people. And I was standing by the pew, and all of a sudden she came over and kind of put her arm around me, and she got real close and whispered, she said, "Thank you for the card." She said, "You're the only one that ever sends them."
Mhm.
And that told me, yeah, this is what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. I got one from you one day. I don't think anybody knew that I was having some difficulties at the time, but then I get this card and I'm like, wow, thank you, God. Because it was
Oh, yeah.
perfect. It was perfect. It
Oh,
was
yeah,
perfect
they always
timing.
are. And I used to think sending cards was stupid. But then when I started getting sympathy cards, it's like that person took the time to think about you enough to go purchase a card and mail it to you with
Mhm.
some little message in it. And when you get that card, you're like, I can't believe these people are thinking about me. It really touches you that someone is thinking about you and takes the time to acknowledge that they're thinking about you.
Yes.
It's really very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to go back to what Pat said for a moment. Because when we carry a burden, like you said, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. It's those times when we feel like we're carrying something and we're like, why can't I just let go of this? You try to give it to God, you can give it to God, but sometimes you just pull it right back. In those moments, we're not living out of what our identity is. Because God will never give us a burden. He gives to us what He knows that we can carry. Now, He'll sometimes give us a little more to strengthen us, but what I'm saying is, if you're carrying something that God didn't give you and it's not related to your identity, then it might be difficult because you're trying to do something. Maybe you feel like you should do it. I feel like I should step up and be the leader. Maybe that's not what God wanted of you. Maybe you are a leader, but maybe in this situation, I shouldn't be the leader. Or if you say, well, Verna sends cards, I got to send cards too. And that's not what God really wants for you. It will become a burden to send those cards out. It's probably not a burden for you, is it? Not at all. You feel very comfortable doing it, don't you? Yeah, because it's part of what God has called you to do. So he gives you the strength, like Pat was saying, to do these things. And how we determine that is by listening or thinking that we're coming up with it on our own, but then acknowledging that it was God was the one that was giving us that. And when we give God that acknowledgement, if that all of a sudden that feeling goes away or that desire goes away, well, that probably wasn't God. You're acknowledging him. He's correcting you because he's not going to step in and force himself upon you if you don't give him some kind of acknowledgement. Whether you say, "Hey God, did you really say this?" or whether you say thank you, there's not a cookie cutter way to speak to God. You just simply speak, and it's a two-way conversation. There's been times when I thought, when I had the desire to do something, maybe it was get a new job or try something different, and I take it to God and I say, God, is this you? And then all of a sudden I start thinking about something else, and a couple hours later, I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that. Well, I know it wasn't God, and I kind of drop it at that. But if I'm a couple hours later, here it is again. Just suddenly pops into my mind. Here it is again. Then I know that it's probably God. That's why when I became a pastor, I think, I'm not going to do that. No way. But then 6 months later, where is this thought coming from? And then it was a couple years later, it just was so strong every day. I want you to be a pastor. I want you to be a pastor. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I kept saying, well, maybe when I retire, and then I get a phone call. Hey, would you like to be a pastor? Okay, I know it's God.
So do you think you took a break for a little while being pastor? Do you think that now that you're back that you feel closer to God than you did before?
Oh, absolutely. God didn't tell me to take that break. Well, maybe he did for my own good to bring me back around, but I believe he let me, let's put it that way, I believe he let me take a break because he knew I needed to get straightened out. But yeah, I know now I am closer to God in the last 5 years than I ever have been in my entire life. And this will be, in July 1st, will be 25 years as being a pastor. And only in the last 5 years have I really been closer to God. So I struggled a lot that first 20 years because I was trying to do a lot of things on my own, in my own strength. I wasn't hearing from him real well. I was hearing from him, but I was confused by it a lot. And I tried to say it wasn't him. But now that I have this two-way conversation with him, and trust me, as you do it more, you'll know. And you won't question it. And you'll thank him for being more clear. And it will make a difference in your life. Absolutely. And that's why I'm teaching it now. Because I want everybody to have what he has given me in this relationship. And we're probably all at different levels of where we are with that. And it's not meant to, I didn't say that so that we can compare, I said that so that we know we can all get to a higher level.
And it's a stop and go and fit. It's not.
Yes.
It's not a smooth thing, because I don't believe, not because of him, but because we go.
Yes.
And there's a rabbit
Yes.
over there, and
Exactly.
or I just plain forget to say.
Yes.
What am I supposed to be doing here? Or
Yes.
where am I?
And
Instead of
And I'm glad you said that, because though it can be quicker if we respond quicker, we're not always going to. In fact, most of us won't respond as quickly as we shouldn't say should, but as quickly as he would like. But he knows that, and he works with that. He meets us right where we are, no matter where we are. He doesn't wait for us to get certain ducks in a row and then, hey, finally, I've been waiting for you to come. Come look at this burning bush. No, he says, I know you're ready for the burning bush, so here it is. And he knows how you're going to respond. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like you have to be prepared. He will prepare you. And yes, it can be a very long journey, but let's think about it this way. If we reach perfection tonight, we walk out of here and we're as close to God as we can ever be. We are perfect. We're ready to teach the world. Do we need God any longer at that point?
Not if we're that full
Yes, exactly.
of
So
ourselves.
that's why, well, we will never, ever, ever be like God. Okay? But, and it's not that he holds us back, because when we do get to that point where, hey, I feel pretty good, he'll take you to another level. He'll give you a new gift. He'll give you a new understanding, because there's so much of him to give, and we'll never experience it all in our lifetime. We won't live long enough. Just like Amazing Grace. When we've been there 10,000 years, shining bright as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Did I sing that right?
It sounds good.
Now, Mary Catherine, if she's watching this, she's going to try to get me in the choir. Not happening. She's a very good encourager. She encourages people that they can sing well, and I know better. I've heard myself.
When you know, you know.
Yeah.
Verna knows, because she's too polite to tell me I sing really bad. If it's a song I like, I sing it really loud. And she's just way too polite to say, shut up.
Up here, I think I sound great.
I know, me too.
When my daughter stood next to me and said, "Oh, Mom, don't sing so loud." Okay.
When you know a song,
Okay.
you are good.
Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you're not familiar with it.
And I
you're
close the
trying
book,
to-
and I close the book after 3 words.
When she's trying to find the notes and can't, then the book goes and she's like just hums along.
I can't read music.
Oh, I can't read music at
I
all.
never.
I was never.
I never was music.
Well, I always turn my microphone off.
Oh, I definitely would. I'd have to, or use it everybody leave.
Yeah, but it's bad when you sit behind the
But
shell
do you-
cross.
I know. We
All the
sat in the
shell
shell
crosses can
cross.
all sing.
Did
Yeah.
anybody
Yes.
else?
By golly, I'm going to sing in church.
Yeah, make a joyful noise.
A little bit of Ruth in me on that.
If you
I mean,
know
I-
Ruth, she could not sing, but she sang with all her heart.
Did
those
she?
hymns.
Yeah.
Oh, I sing.
I don't think I've
But I
ever heard her
can't
sing.
It's not any better than it's not any worse than I am.
Yeah.
But
We have enough good ones around us to drown us
Oh,
out.
yeah.
yeah. One time, he didn't tell it me, but Jack Conway told my mother, you know, Pat really knows the words to the song.
That's me. I know the words. Don't ask me to sing them. I don't know the notes. Okay, Judy McGarry put a comment on here. Said, thank you. I needed this confirmation that I'm not dragging my feet. I am just being prepared. Yes, that is so true. Now, if you feel like you're dragging your feet, take that to God too. And say, God, if I am dragging my feet, how do I pick them up? Because if you just say, well, I'm dragging my feet, that's just who I am. No, that's not who you are, because that's not how God would make you. You know what I mean? He wouldn't make you to drag your feet. He wants you to move. And yes, if you're not dragging your feet, you're being prepared. But now that you've got that confirmation, let's let God take it to the next level now. And he's not going to send you to Africa to be a missionary, okay? It's nothing drastic like that. And if it is for you, that's fine. I'm not trying to tell anybody they're not being called to Africa as a missionary, but don't hold yourself back thinking that God is going to ask you to do more than what you want to do. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and part of that serving, yes, what Pat said was really good. He gives you the strength, especially when you're struggling, and that's what Jesus said the Holy Spirit would do. He's the comforter, he's the guide, he's the counselor. But God is always with us. Even when we think, hey, I'm doing pretty good, I'm having a good day, God's still there, and he's still giving you strength. He's still easing your mind. He's preparing you for the next thing to come that may not be good. You know, maybe it's a roller coaster day. You're feeling really good in the morning, and then he's still there. So he's not just there when you need the strength. He's always, always, always with us. We are never alone. Never. So, having said that, I want to tell you how I feel sometimes. It just blows my mind. I want to see if anybody feels the same way. I often, not so much anymore, but I used to say, God, there are 5 billion people in the world, maybe 7 billion. I don't know how many billion people there are in the world anymore. Maybe it's only 1 billion. I don't know. No, there's 1 billion in China. But anyway, why would you take time to help me? This is what I used to say, okay? And it turned into, okay, I know you are always with me, but my goodness, this person has more of a problem than I do. Go spend time with them. That's a human understanding. I can only be in one place at one time, okay? But God is everywhere all the time, omnipresent. He is everywhere all the time. When I go home tonight, God will be with me. He'll be with Debbie. He'll be with Pat. He'll be with Barb. He'll be with Lisa. He'll be with Jolie. He'll be with Verna. And everybody on Facebook too. And everybody that doesn't know we're even talking right now. He'll be with them all. He can do that. We can't. You know, sometimes we say we wish we could split ourselves in 2 or 3 and do many things at one time. God can and does. So, anybody ever think that way too? I saw you nod your head. Yeah, it's not easy to overcome, but at the same time, it can turn into. I'm not saying it is. It can turn into self-righteousness. God, take care of everybody else's problem. I'm okay. That's self-righteous. We need God all the time, and that's why He came to serve. Because we need Him to serve us. We wouldn't be able to live without Him serving us.
And it's difficult to me to be mindful of Him all the time.
Sure, yeah, you're human. Welcome
Yeah,
to humanity.
you get into, whatever, and
Yeah.
you're tripping and you're
And
doing stuff, and you're thinking,
that is thanks to Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Because they were mindful of Him all the time until they ate from the tree of knowledge. Now they have knowledge, and now they don't have that mindfulness of Him all the time. Something changed. They realized they were naked. Something changed, and they realized this isn't good. And they broke the relationship. So that's why, and I'm not, and I hope I didn't come across as saying we need to be mindful of Him all the time. Well, we do, but I know that we're not. But as we get closer to Him and we become more mindful, then we start to change. And I don't mean that we make the change. I mean He changes us. That's important too. Because if we feel like we're making the change, then we're doing our own thing. But if we see, like I just said here a minute ago, I said, if I look back 5 years, I see a drastic change in my life. But I didn't do that. God did that to me.
Thank you for doing that. That's not the definition of self-righteous I always got. That is really saying something there, what you just said.
What was that?
That when you say, God take care of everybody
Yeah.
else, I'm okay, that makes us self-righteous. That's not what I thought. I don't know what I thought self-righteous was.
Okay.
But That was good.
Well, self-righteous can be many things, but that is like a form
Okay.
of self-righteousness. Self-righteous also says that, well, it is. It's because it's saying, I got this, I can do this on my own. I don't need I only need God for certain things.
Yeah.
That's self-righteous. So, yeah, when we say that, God, go take care of someone else, we're basically saying, I don't need you. And that's not good. And he'll just stand back. He don't go away. He'll take a step back, and when you fall on your face, okay, now do you need me? Yeah,
Okay.
we need you. So, okay.
I always thought of self-righteousness as my way's the only right way.
Sure, that's part of it too, yeah.
No.
Yeah, like I said, there's
I mean,
many ways to
this-
look at self-righteousness.
The way I'm looking at this
Yeah.
situation is
Yeah, the
the only
Pharisees,
way.
Pharisees
Yeah.
were very self-righteous because they thought their way was the only way
Right.
and the right way. And that's how they missed out on Jesus. So yeah, there are many ways to look at self-righteousness, many forms. Okay, my thing keeps shutting off on me. So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your steps. When we lean on our own understanding, we are leaning on human understanding. We're not leaning on God's understanding. And when we lean on God's understanding, and yes, I know we all fall into that trap of not being mindful of him all the time. But when we do, we realize that we're leaning on our own understanding, and all of a sudden we might feel lost, we might start to get depressed, we might worry, we might try to do things on our own. But when we come back to, okay, God, who am I? What am I doing? We keep bringing him back in and lean on him. He will direct our steps. So, all of these things that we've talked about tonight come down to, we can really sum it up with one word: faith. Because, remember how I said this now. Can God do it? Yes, that's faith. Does God do it? I believe now we say yes, that he does. Will God do it? When we say yes, God will do something in our lives, that's faith. Because let's face it, we have never seen him physically. We have never, well, most of us never hear him audibly. Like I said last week or the week before, I heard him that one time, audible, no. We can't smell him. We can't say, here, put my hand and say, hey, this is God. So we do it in faith, which is believing in what we cannot see and knowing that it's real. So we walk in faith, and we got to stay in faith. Love this example, and I know you've heard it before, because pastors love to use this example of there's a storm brewing, and all the disciples are in a boat, and they see Jesus walking on water. 11 of them are scared to death, not realizing that it's Jesus. Peter, in that moment, has such tremendous faith, and he says, if it's you, tell me to come to you, knowing that if it's you, I can walk like you are. And he gets out, and God lets him walk on water. That's tremendous faith right there. Until he looks around and says, uh-oh, I'm walking on water. And I believe that's why when we think, okay, I'm going to walk on water, I'm going to step into the swimming pool, we believe we can do it at that moment until we are in our peripheral vision, we see all the water, and down we go. That's why people don't walk on water. But if God wanted to let us walk on water and he would have a purpose for it, then we could. And I'm self-admitting that I did try once. And I went down. That's probably why I had a hip replacement. I was a little immature in my faith at that time. Okay, so I don't know where I was going with this. How do they talk to people? Oh, I know where I was going with this. Okay. I guess we got a little bit of time. Is there any questions or comments? I could wrap it up here, but I could also talk about this. And I think it's kind of important to talk about this. We kind of hit on it a little bit. Like, when we do something, like Verna sends cards, and she's not burdened by that. She doesn't feel like, I have to do this. You want to do it. You wanted to do the shoes and the scarves and hats, and I'm sure we could all say there's something that we enjoy doing. And now that we acknowledge that it's coming from God, that's going to help us a lot. But at times, we are taught to do things that we weren't really intended to do. And I'm talking about what churches teach us quite often. And that is Matthew 28:20. Earlier we read 20:28, come to serve. So 28:20, the opposite of that is, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and Son and Holy Spirit, and lo, I'm with you till the very end of the age. So we get taught that we have to go make disciples. And you know what? Jesus said do it. But he didn't give us here's how you do it. It didn't come with an instruction manual of how to do it. But the church so often tries to make that instruction manual. And people who are evangelists and are called to be evangelists, and there are people, there's one in our church that I know of for sure. He hasn't acknowledged it yet, and he's probably watching right now. He knows who he is. But anyway, they learn and grow into kind of what the church tries to force upon everybody else. And I don't mean any church in particular. I'm not saying this church. I mean church in general sense. No matter the denomination or independence, they take this Matthew 28:20 and really push it. The Evangelical Friends Church made their whole who they are on this one verse. But the problem is, yes, we are commanded to go and make disciples. But first of all, what's a disciple? And secondly, can we do it in our own way? I take that back. Can we do it in the way God intended for us to do it? That's the way I should say it. Not in our own way. And by that I mean, I'm comfortable walking up to someone I don't know and start talking to them. And eventually, if that leads to talking about God, boy, I latch on. Now, I don't just walk up and say, hey, do you know Lord? I don't do that because I'm not comfortable doing that. But if I catch that they're even open for a little bit, I'm like a leech, man. I get on there and I pour the gospel into them. Okay? But I wait and see. Some people and I say this in very general terms, may say, well, that's not the right way to do it. You really got to share your faith. But that's not how God has made me. He has me get to know the person, build a relationship with the person, and then pour out. So am I wrong? I don't think so, because I'm doing it the way God intended for me to do it. So now I'm not saying we all need to go out now and figure out a way to share your faith, because sharing your faith can be smiling at someone. You know, you don't realize how a smile can brighten someone's day. Sharing your faith could be just being a good friend with someone. There's many ways to do it. So what I'm saying is, no matter what we are taught by whomever, if we take it to God and say, okay, God, yes, this is what the Bible says, but how do you want me to go about it? Who am I, and how I'm made? How does that relate to what you're asking me to do? Do you know what I mean? Okay, some are nodding, some are like. But I guess what I'm saying is, in all things, take it to God and work with Him, because you will know. He's not. I can't remember the exact verse now. When you ask for bread, you're not going to be given a stone or a snake, whatever it is. God's not going to give you something other than what you asked for. I can't remember now. But
You think it's a stone?
I think
it is a stone. What?
I think it's a stone.
The stone, yeah, that's what I think
'cause
it
you
is
couldn't-
too.
But at some place, it does say something about a snake.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
another verse
Yeah.
farther down.
So anyway, what I'm saying is, whatever you do, however you do it, will all be related to how God sees you. And how do we know how God sees us? We ask Him, and we listen, and we respond. We can question God, did you really say that? You'll know. Okay, I hear it in my mind, but I always check it with His character from what I read in His Word. Absolutely. That way I don't have to second guess. Works for me. That's true too. God is never going to tell you to do something that is contrary to what is written in the Bible. Never. Somebody told me one time that they heard, what was it? That God was calling me names. I'm like, well, you weren't listening to God then. Now, God may be upset with me, but He's not going to call me a name. That's coming from the devil. And that person's like, oh, I never thought of that. So yeah, that goes contrary. God's not going to call you, I don't know if it was a dirty name or a derogatory name or what it was, but He's never going to do that because that goes against His Word. So that person was listening to the wrong voices.
And besides, why would he be bothering to tell Joe Blow
Yes.
about your problem?
Exactly. That's, well,
sorry.
we could go on about that one too. But you're absolutely right.
mean,
We'll save that one for the gifts of the Spirit study. Because
you gonna
when you
do
get
that
me started on that, I could go on for a while.
Are you going to do that one again?
I am, yeah.
I like that one. That
Yeah.
was really good.
I am going to do it again, yes. At some point. Oh,
Well,
and
I
that
think you
reminds
like
me,
that one.
for this one here, I said I didn't know how long it would go, but, and I still don't know, but I'm guessing at least 3 more weeks, maybe 4 or 5 more weeks. Then we'll take a short break and do another one. Okay? And maybe it'll go longer, I don't know. God hasn't told me yet. So, I'll just listen. Okay, so that's all I've got for tonight. If anybody's got any other questions or comments, I don't see anything else on Facebook. All right, so what do you think? Are you feeling closer to God? Do you feel like you're hearing Him better?
I think I understand it better.
Okay?
But I
Good.
think, like you said, I'm not gonna be able, maybe not on my timetable. Do you know what I mean? Like it took you, so,
Yeah, it took me a long time.
yeah, well,
Now-
maybe I, hopefully.
No, it did. And I'm glad you said that because I have often said to God, well, why was it me that it took so long? And His answer simply was, it took what it took. It took the time it took. Now,
Because
someone
there's
else
no
could,
right or wrong.
right. You know, someone could become a Christian today and in a year be teaching things that I've never taught. It could happen. Or they may never, rise up to that level. And there's no right or wrong. See, as human beings, we're often comparing ourselves to others. We haven't got into that part yet. That's coming up in a couple weeks. But we can't compare to one another because we are who we are. We are who God made us, and we're all different. That's why we got different fingerprints. God's trying to show us that He made us all unique when He gave us different fingerprints. So don't feel like, well, I'm too old, or don't feel like I missed the boat. No. I only really became closer to God 5 years ago because that was the time He was ready for me, and I
So
was ready.
15 years ago, you could not have talked about
probably not.
what you're
No.
talking about now.
No, there's no way. I could have, but I would have been making mistakes. It would have been a burden for me back then because I didn't understand it the way I do now. And I did have a moment one night. I've talked about this before in sermons. and it will be 5 years in August 9th, 2019. August 9th, 2019. That night, something in me changed. God was like, I don't know what he did, but something in me changed. And I thought differently, I acted differently, things changed me. Now, I didn't become who I am today. That night, I grew, and I'm still growing and becoming hopefully more and not falling back. But I'm not perfect in any sense of the imagination. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that I did have a sudden significant change that night. Not everybody does. It was like a huge light bulb moment, if you will. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've heard people say that when you came back, that they noticed a difference.
That's what I was just going to say.
And-
when you took that break and people were like, why did he do that? What's going on? It was the best thing you could have done.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I said, God allowed me to take that break. I don't believe that God really wanted me to take that break. He wanted to work with me a different way, but he said, okay, if this is how you're going to do this, I'll allow this, but now you're going to listen to me.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I needed that
The
break.
confidence and
Yeah.
everything I saw when you come back.
And it's funny because when Ian first told me that, at the time he thought he was going to South Carolina, I think it was, or North Carolina, can't remember now. But anyway, I said, well, I'm not going back. I'm not doing it. And that was me saying that. A couple of days later, like, yeah, you are. You're going back. I'm like, oh, God, really? You're calling me back? I said, but I don't really want to. And then it was, I want to. Because I yielded, I surrendered to him. I said, if you really want this, you've got to give me the desire. And boy, did he. Mm-hmm. When I said I didn't make it about me anymore and I gave it to him, he gave me the desire. And then I was like, when can I go back? Ian didn't leave quick enough at that point. So, yeah, but that's another way that that's another way, that God's calling you, is because that desire will be very strong. It'll be something you can, but he won't want you to deny it. Because again, he'll never force you. Mm-hmm. We always, always, always have a choice. Always. Yeah. Judy McGarry says, I wandered in the desert for 40 years when I was first called to be a lay speaker. Stop, start, stop, start. Yeah, I know that feeling quite well. All right. Anything else?
No.
I'm thinking maybe we should have turned the air conditioner on because it did get hotter
Yeah,
a
it is.
That's okay.
little bit. But well, thank you all for joining in. Thank you all. And we will
Thank
be
you.
back next week. Even though I won't be here this weekend, I will be back Sunday.
Yeah, Chad's preaching.
Yeah, Chad's preaching Sunday, but I'll be back Sunday afternoon. So we will have Bible study next Wednesday night.
We'll get out early on Sunday because Chad's speaking.
Chad can hear you.
Go Chad!
And Chad would probably agree with you. All right, everybody.
He's adding.
He does a nice job. Him and
It
Kathy
does.
both.